Harjo. I'm from Oklahoma City. I grew up like any other kid, I would say, playing sports and attending school, and had and probably a circumstance that I didn't know at the time would lead me to the system, but I grew up in a single parent household. My mother was young; she was a teenage girl, so I lived primarily with my grandmother, her mother. She was 19 at the time when she had me. Probably struggled financially, so that led to me kind of being a little bit mischievous as a kid, not having a father around, and so I didn't really have the discipline or the stern disciplinary figure to kind of keep me in line. So as I got older, I started to experience, the peer pressure, and started experimenting with stuff, and that eventually led me to myself having a child at an early age, and then fighting with her over the custody eventually led me into the system. I went through a boot camp, which was called RID at the time. It was a 4-month boot camp. It was basically it was an alternative to kind of prevent people from actually going into DOC custody for a long period of time. So what I did was went through as a 4-month little boot camp deal, and then it was actually on a DOC yard, and then that was my first experience with the Department of Corrections, and then that gave me a long period of probation, and that kind of seems to be, I don't want to say a norm, but I know a lot of people who have gone through the penal system, and they have a large amount of time on the back end. And so, not being familiar with that terminology, the back end doesn't make any sense to you. They can actually go back and charge you if you pick up another charge or you violate any policy or stipulations that are laid out in your probation period, and you can do the full amount. So that kind of is a bummer in a sense, especially for someone that doesn't know anything like that. And then not knowing the fact that the system is, to me, it was designed and structured. They understand that you're going to basically return back to the same environment. I didn't know either that the recidivism rate was 85%. And so, unfortunately, that was my situation, is that I reoffended. But the reoffending came from me not knowing, using a child. And the child, like I said, I was raised as in a single parent family. And so I wanted this picture perfect family. I wanted to be able to do something for my child that I didn't have, and that was to have a two-parent household. And unfortunately, I didn't know. I was called to get my kid, and I was asked, the police arrived. I was at a girlfriend's house. The mother of my child and I were no longer together, and of course, being young and naive, not knowing what was going on, the police were sent there, and as a welfare check. Nothing was wrong with the kid. I only had the kid for maybe a couple hours. And then I was told to come outside and ask some questions, not knowing what was going on. And then I was placed in handcuffs. And that right there was enough to send me back. After that, I learned, that, hey, they're not playing fair at all. And so what I did is I tried to change, because I understood that if I don't change, then the likelihood of my child going down the same and repeating the cycle was very high. And so I started to read a lot, and they actually offer college courses when I was incarcerated. So I took those, and then I was let out, and then I got married, and I stayed out for a while. And when I say about a decade, doing really well for myself financially, and staying away from the law. And then, of course, not knowing, how life takes its quick turns, I found myself again facing criminal charges. Only this time, the criminal charges that I faced were fabricated. I was arrested under the pretense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer. And I never assaulted a police officer. I never had any physical altercation with a police officer. I never hit him or anything of that nature. What happened was it was a regular traffic stop. And at that time, there was a lot of police violence and police brutality going on in the media, especially against men of color. And so I panicked and thought to myself, oh crap, let's go somewhere safe. So what I did is I drove to a safe location. I didn't pull over. And I thought the safe location would be my house. And luckily for me, I went to my house, and I knew that there were a couple of police officers that lived in my neighborhood. One of which was at the scene that evening. I get out of the vehicle, and I lay on the ground in my front yard, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm not resisting arrest. I'm in total compliance. And that was enough to spark the attention of my neighbors, which helped me probably, because they came outside and they were recording what was going on. And so they take me and put me in the back of the police car, and in the back when I get to the station, I'm asking them what happened. What are my charges? And they were basically pretty rude at the time. And then they said, we're going to get you for aggravated, or we're going to get you assault and battery on a police officer. And I said, how? How did I aggravate assault you? And he said, well, whenever when I pulled my squad car up to your car and told you to get out of the car, your car door touched my car. And so that was what we considered a deadly weapon. And they were telling me to calm down, and I had tears coming out of my eyes. And I said, you're going to destroy my life. I'm going to lose everything. I worked in the HVAC, air conditioning industry. I wasn't employed as a union member of Local 344. So I made really good money. And like I said, I had a house and a family, married and doing good. There was nothing I could do. And because of the fact that I had previous an encounter with the law previously, they used that against me. And then me being ignorant of the law at that time, of course I was scared. And it was kind of what more or less I felt like I was coerced into taking a plea. Well, first, before that, I was on bond, and then they doubled my bond. It was like a game. It was just a money game that they kept playing, and then eventually it went up to $44,000. It started off as a $10,000 bond, and then it went up to $22,000 and then $44,000, and then after that they took my bond from me. And then my attorney told me I would have to sit. He said, just let me sit. I need you to sit for just a little bit. I was facing life because of that. And like I said, by the good graces of the Lord, I was able to somehow get a good deal, I guess, in my my situation, and he comes back to me and he says, pick a number between 1 and 10. I got the district attorney to go down after, considering he wanted to give me 25 to life. And I said, I didn't touch an officer. I didn't hit anybody. And he said, look, we can go to trial if you want to go to trial. I'll fight for you. But he's like, I'm telling you, Rossi, right now, they're going to get on the stand and they're going to lie. That was his exact words to me. And he's like, you're not paying me to lie to you. I'm telling you the truth. He said, now if you want to go and you want to fight it, he said, I'm all for it. But I'm telling you, they're going to get up there and lie. And they know it's a lie. And so it was at that point that maybe the reality kind of just sunk in. Like, there was no way for me to be able to get out of that. They wanted me for some reason. I don't know. That's what his words were. They wanted me. So after that, I was released out of custody after about 4 years. And I was upset. And I mean, I was really upset. I mean, like, a lot of rage. I went through a divorce during that time. I seen my children a total of 4 times during my incarceration. It was really hard. It was really difficult. Getting out, luckily I had the support of the person that raised me, was my grandmother. My mind was so clouded with anger and malevolent thoughts that I don't really think that I could see clearly that there were other people trying to help in a sense. But I was so focused on trying to prove myself again and prove my innocence. Luckily, I had a break. If it wasn't for my grandmother, I wouldn't have went to this place. And she was kind of on me because I kind of wasn't, I was unsure of what I wanted to do as far as gaining employment. Because at that point in time, I didn't trust anybody, not even her. It showed me the ugliest of the ugly. And it was hard to trust anyone at that point. So she took me to the place, and I ran into someone that I knew from, younger days and playing basketball. He was like, do you want to try this firefighting thing out? And that was a good, big break for me. It actually helped turn my life around, kept me out of trouble, let me go out in the forest as a wildland firefighter and just become one with nature and kind of probably relinquish a lot of those harbored feelings and thoughts. And I did a lot of talking to myself, I guess. Sometimes I need expert advice. When I looked at my childhood, I found something very scary. And it was about the single mother, being raised by a single mother. And I went through a custody battle, and I actually got custody of my oldest son. And so that's what really prompted me to say, you have to figure something out. In that time, I could sit here and harp and blame the justice system for whatever, but there was some good in that, and that good was it allowed me. I had a tough time growing up, struggling with alcoholism, and so it allowed me to gain sobriety in that, and enough time to really reflect and think about things that I needed to get back out and go forward. And I tell my children the same thing because they were affected. The kids were affected, but that's the reality of what happens. And I asked them, are you angry at your father? And they said yes. And I said, why? And they said, because you were in jail. And so I explained to them, that I take responsibility for that. I apologized to them for that. And I just pray for them that they'll find a path. And they don't have to go down that same path. Extreme prison sentences is something that I think that could definitely free up, because children are involved, but they know. They know what they're doing, in a sense of let's get the next generation. So our children that are going to these nice private schools, they can prosecute their kids, and I feel comfortable saying that, because that's the reality. I had to, because I was thinking to myself, man, how many houses did you buy? How many cars did you buy by paying these lawyers? And that was one of the things that I had to think for myself, that for my own justice, of if I don't change my thinking, then my kids were going to be in the justice system as well. I was fortunate enough to be able to be headstrong, to change my mentality and my thinking. And then when I seen the reality of, wow, this is crazy. If I don't get a grip on this cycle is reoccurring. That's the reality. That's the scary thing of that people don't think about, or they don't talk about, is that the children are affected by this. And then they were being raised by a woman, because of the justice system. And then so that places a strain on the mother, financially, emotionally, physically. But it also places a strain on the relationship that a man and woman have because of that. So I was actually upset with her. She probably was upset with me. Vice versa, because I left, and we blamed each other. So that crippled the family nucleus. And then, of course, the children were affected because of this. But, thankfully, we've been able to put our differences aside, and we're starting to co-parent and have a lot better and more healthy relationship rather than counter-parent, because at first it was it's hard. Very, very hard. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat anything and say that it's easy. Because even after I was released, physically I wasn't seeing my children like I wanted to see my children. It wasn't until maybe 2 years after that I actually started. I actually lived in a hotel room. Because I couldn't find it. I couldn't find a place that was going to lease or give me rent. Or rent, they don't want to rent to a felon. So that's a reality. So I stayed in a motel room for 2 years. Obviously, a lot of people don't have a lot of money, unless you're a superstar, rapper or something like that to that extent. But those normal folks like us, we don't have a lot of money to come out here and pay all these outrageous fines and fees. We've already given you our life. We paid with our life. You've taken our freedom from us. And then on top of that, you put the stipulation of pay this. If you don't pay, then you place us back in the jail. And then, so it's already hard that we can't find employment. So how are we supposed to pay? If we can't find employment, we have a felony conviction, we can't find a job. So how are we supposed to pay you guys? That would probably be one of the biggest things that I say that needs to change. Psychologically, I don't want to say I was oppressed, but there were bouts that I fought, because any man or woman or human being who is deprived of the love and joy of their life, and that being their kids, is going to go through a period of depression. And then the anxiety. Oh man, I mean, like before I got out, I was fine the whole time I was there. But like the last 2 weeks of before I was released, oh, I had the craziest anxiety because it was like, oh crap, reality is about to take place. And what I knew from a spiritual point was, now you're about to be tested. So do you really believe in the unseen? Because the physical realm is going to manifest to you the reality of what happened. And so are you going to live in faith and be able to forgive and really forget, but be able to forgive those who wronged you? But I found myself in that, and it helped me. And I found spirituality inside there. I actually started practicing Islam inside there, which was a big break for me because it gave me an understanding of injustice, and it helped me come to the realization that there is a higher power, and then this higher power, he has a plan. And so to have forgiveness, and that was a big thing for me, was to be able to learn to forgive and to let go a lot of those things. And since I've forgiven those people, my life has been a lot better. The Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City is very special to me because it helped me transition my life. It's a spiritual place. It's a place that I can go to and I can talk to my higher power and get one-on-one with him because of, like I said, the struggles that we have. It's just a place that I can go and I can find fellowship and I can find support, and it's a reminder of keep going forward.